Hi everyone. In this month's journey video, I'm going to show you how I published 3 podcasts, including one which is a video podcast, all using AI. AI helped me produce, AI helped me post-process, and AI helped me publish. AI also helped me create a whole video series. When I started this month's project, I did not know anything about how to launch a podcast. I did not know where to start. I did not know how to start. I didn't even know how I could get it into Spotify or Apple Podcasts. With lots of research, I was able to gather some knowledge on how the process works. Before we go any further, let me give you the process. There are different stages to getting a podcast out. First is the pre-production stage. This is the phase where we decide the topic and the content of the podcast. This stage involves you trying to get your ideas on paper, trying to sketch out what you want to record, what you want to do, and so on and so forth. Then we go to the production stage. This phase involves you producing the actual recording that you're going to use for the podcast. This, you do it with the help of podcasting equipment, microphones, etc. Then we move on to the post-production stage. This involves editing audio clips together and making them one good produced show. Adding music or sound effects makes the podcast seem more professional. We will also make or adjust audio to remove any unwanted noise and clean it up a little bit. These are called artifacts, and sometimes you want to remove unnecessary artifacts. Then we move on to the publishing stage. Once your podcast is ready to be heard by the world, in this stage you identify a hosting provider and publish it to the hosting provider. Once you publish it on the hosting provider, you can then push it to the different directories. These are what Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts are. These are just directories. And what they do is they get the feed from the hosted website. This process can seem daunting and even expensive when you consider the myriad of options in mics and podcast setups. This is not including the post-production costs of hiring someone to do the cleanup and enhancing your audio. Not anymore. With the advent of generative AI tools, you can take this whole process and do it on your desk. So, watch me as I will walk you through in detail of how AI can help you in every step of the way. I wanted to use AI across all 3 production stages of getting my podcast done. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. Let's go to our diagram that we saw before. Now, let's lay out AI in every step of the way. As you can see, I've used AI in different stages of this process. Let's talk about the pre-production stage. In this stage, I used AI for topic ideas, for research, content production, and also layout design. Just give me a layout of a podcast. I didn't know anything to start with. In production, I used it for the actual producing of the podcast. I used AI to produce and generate the audio with good audio quality and text to speech. And finally, in post-production, I used AI and the power of AI to take my noisy recording that I had done and dynamically adjust audio levels. It was able to add effects, match music to my sound, and also to make my sound like it was produced in a studio. It did a lot of noise cancellation. It did a lot of frequency adjustments. It did so much in the post-production stage that I can't wait to show you the results. Let's see what it takes to take your idea from a home recording to a studio-grade podcast. For February, I wanted to complete 3 projects. My first one, I wanted to produce and publish a podcast series to help kids learn about some of the famous speeches in history. For my second podcast, I wanted to produce and publish a podcast series for an adult audience, kid-friendly too, but that covered one of my favorite rabbit hole topics: obscure references. Obscure references in language, obscure references in pop culture, obscure references in sports. Each week, a different category. My third objective: I wanted to produce and publish a video tutorial series for kids that had easy to understand explainers on basic science concepts. This one, I wanted it to be a video series on YouTube. And I'm going to cover that in a separate video. So we're going to cover the first two where I was doing my audio podcast in this video. I did not know what kind of technologies to use yet. I tagged the requirements of number one and number two, the two audio podcasts, into two broad categories. One is I wanted to find a tool that did audio AI voice generation for production stage. And two, I wanted a tool that did the post-production part of it, where it cleaned up the noise levels and so on and so forth. So before we get into the details of these two, I want to give you a sample of what this looks like. Let's look at a clip for the AI voice generation. I'm going to play you a clip, and it has 4 to 5 voices. One of them is a human, the rest of them are AI. They're in mixed order, and I want you to listen and listen carefully and see if you can make out which one is the voice actor.
Welcome to another episode of History Speaks to My 5-Year-Old. This is a podcast series that is designed to introduce
to young kids some of the greatest historical speeches. We will talk about when the speech was given,
by whom and why it is significant. We want kids at the end of each episode to take away the essence
of these great moments and also learn about their main message and theme. We will simplify the conversation to a very basic level so that a 5-year-old can understand the content, hence the name.
I'm your host, Styles, and we are here in the studio with my nephew, Timmy.
All right, so for everyone that have guessed, the one
5-year-old can understand the content, hence the name,
was the voice actor. Now, let me play another sample, and this one shows you how good noise cancellation and audio cleanup quality is in post-production stages. I can go from sounding like this.
So, I'm trying to record this on my laptop mic with the fan running in the background.
To this.
So, I'm trying to record this on my laptop mic with fan.
That is a very good quality cleanup from a post-production stage. Now, these are just teasers. I'm going to go into full detail on how these were achieved. Looking at all the tools that I used, the process that I used, and so on and so forth. For the pre-production stage, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. All I wanted to cover was in the pre-production stage, I used generative AI text tools to do some research, get me a layout idea, and so on and so forth. I don't want to cover that as part of this whole video. I want to focus on the production stage onwards. So, production stage AI generated voice. In this section, we will explore what audio generative AI is, look at some of the popular tools out there, discuss my experience in using them for podcasting purposes, and finally, compare their performance with each other and with that of a real human voice actor. Let me start with the bold statement. Audio generated from generative AI, more specifically TTS or text-to-speech, is going to revolutionize communication and media consumption in the next few years. That is a bold statement, but once we go through this whole video, we will both agree that that is not a far-off statement. This subset of tech is more popularly known as TTS or text-to-speech. There are many machine learning models that are used in this technology, but the most popular models are based on neural network TTS models. Let's do a quick understanding of what neural networks are. Neural networks are a type of machine learning algorithm that is inspired by the structure and function of the human brain. Like the brain, a neural network is made up of many interconnected nodes or neurons in the brain that work together to process information. So, in the case of text to speech, a neural network is trained on a large data set of speech recordings and corresponding text transcripts. The network learns to map from the input text to the output speech by adjusting the strength of connections between the nodes to minimize the difference between the predicted speech and the actual speech in the training data. Once the neural network has been trained, it can be used to generate speech from new input text. The input text is fed into the network, which then applies the learned mapping to produce the corresponding speech output. I know that may sound like a lot, but the simple understanding is that when these neural networks are trained, all that is happening is it is interconnecting text to a final output. And now when you give new text input, all it's doing is finding the interconnectivity of the nodes and giving you the expected output. In other ways, neural networks are like a large connected map that you use to traverse your input to your output. TTS, text to speech, has been around for a number of years. The big leap in terms of where this technology could go took place when this particular paper was released. In this paper, they describe a process to generate natural sounding speech that is even distinctive to the voices they used in the training model. So, for example, if they used my voice in the training model, they were able to devise a way to get a speech output that doesn't even sound like mine. This opened up a sea of new features around voice cloning, revoicing, etc. All these took the technology to the next level. And once this paper was released, almost all of the services adopted the technology and the tools, and you could see it in all of the tools I'm using right now. How do these services work? Here's a chart where we try to flesh out their process. Typical process flow for a Gen AI audio SaaS tool. As you can see in this chart, the audio is generated by giving the text input, it goes through the neural network, and it gives you the final output. Let's go out there and explore the popular tools and platforms in the market and make our tool selection for our podcast. There are a lot of generative AI audio services in the market today. All three big cloud vendors or public cloud vendors like Google, Amazon, and Azure have their own TTS service or text to speech service. Amazon has Poly has its service, Microsoft Azure has cognitive services, and Google Cloud has the cloud text to speech API. All three of them are very serviceable products when you want to operationalize them. But my application, though, required me to pick a more consumer-facing tool because I was trying to do a tutorial so people can make this on their own. So I whittled the list down to the below tools. And these are more consumer-facing tools that may or may not use some of the underlying cloud vendors models like Google's and Amazon's and so on and so on. Murf AI. Murf AI is a great tool for those looking to generate speech from text quickly. Their UI is very user-friendly and makes it really easy to get up and run. It has all the features that you would expect from a modern TTS platform, like the ability to customize voices, languages, etc. Our second tool that I wanted to choose was Synthesys AI. Synthesys AI is another great tool for those looking to generate speech from text. They offer a wide selection of natural sounding voices and the ability to control pitch, speed, and volume. Podcastle AI. Podcastle AI is a powerful tool for generating speech from text. They offer voice commands, automated sentence construction, and support for multiple languages. They also offer a great podcast building platform, and I had used it for all of my podcast episodes. They also had the best voice cloning service on the market. Follow along so you can see how I experimented with that. So I narrowed the list down to 4 tools and using each of them for an episode of my podcast series. This allowed me to run a comprehensive real world comparison analysis and even pitted them against a real human voice actor whom I hired for one of the episodes. All the episodes are available on the series History Speaks to My 5 Year Old. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. This is the epic showdown of comparing voice generated by different AI tools and a real human voice actor. Here are the results. Now let's dive deep into these results. The ease of use and flexibility offered by many of today's audio generative AI tools is quite impressive. However, it was truly exciting to experience firsthand how accurately a deep neural network can imitate a real human's cadence, intonation, and accent. Though only when you tweak it just right does it sound perfect. Of course, there remains an incomparable naturality to using the voice talents of an experienced professional voice actor in order to achieve something special for any project. Everything considered, it was an epic showdown between human capabilities and computer algorithms, one that left both sides feeling victorious in their own special way. I think in a few years' time, the capacity to distinguish between real and generated audio will cease to exist. And you can actually see these results that I posted for your own perusal. In terms of closeness to human voice, the VO actor won the round. But in terms of ease of use and ability to modify and make edits, the generated audio AI services were clearly the winner. In terms of cost, it was a no contest. I could easily generate really good audio at a fraction of the cost. In terms of which tool performed the best, it is up to the choosing of the user. I found that I was able to get better results when I applied a little post processing to a good AI generated audio. I do, however, lean towards better UI, and Murf UI was a clear winner in that. I'm interested in the community's opinion, so please weigh in. Listen to the podcast series, different episodes, and weigh in with your thoughts. I'm kind of curious how the community can distinguish between the quality of these different platforms. I will, however, state that the voice cloning system is not yet ready for production quality, but it is incredible for regular everyday use. You can actually pit my voiced clone versus my actual voice by comparing episode 4 of the History podcast versus episode 1 of my other podcast, which is called Obscurate. I will cover that in the post production. In conclusion, these tools are getting better and better, but it is up to the user to decide which tools works for them. Every user will have different needs and preferences, and it is a great way to explore what you need and what you want in a tool before making an informed decision. So what were the benefits to me for using this technology? Like, why didn't I just go ahead and record my own voice? Well, for starters, there's two reasons. Not everybody wants to record their own voice. Not everybody can afford the expensive equipment to produce studio quality output that you can take and publish. Not everybody has the diction that they can produce perfect sounding voice. These tools are really useful for people that want to produce good quality content effectively. Speech generated using these models and algorithms can be produced quickly and with minimal effort and cost. Gone are the days when you need to invest in a high quality recording equipment or dealing with maintaining a quiet environment, which is absolutely not possible in my house, by the way, because I live with 4 adults and 2 kids and a dog. I can now produce a podcast while I'm in the same room as all of these adults, kids, and dogs on my desk and produce it at a studio quality. This is why it is no surprise that more people are discovering its value and businesses are embracing it. That's the reason I had made that bold statement that it's going to change the way we consume content going forward.